to the Own Your Shit podcast here on YouTube. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Own Your Shit podcast. Today, I have a super special guest. When I say super, super special, like y'all don't even understand how much this girl means to me, man. I can't even call her girl. This woman, she means so much to me. If you guys have been following me on social media, or you've been following a lot of marriage pages or wife pages or whatever, I'm sure you've heard of her before. This is LB, Lakia Brandenburg. She's sitting in with me today, and we're chopping it up about, guess what? Estate planning. I know it's not the sexiest thing and it's not super controversial, but it is still a conversation that we need to have. So, LB, thank you so much for joining me today. I really, really appreciate you.
Melissa, I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much for this girl chat. You call me girl, you know we girls.
Yes.
Woman, girl, we girls. But I'm excited. I can't wait to talk.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Now, as I said before, this is kind of like a heavy topic. And for the last couple of episodes, it's kind of been heavy. It's just because I'm comfortable sometimes with having the uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah.
These are conversations we need to have. And Lakia experienced some loss recently, and she is like the perfect person to really go through things that we need to do to prepare ourselves.
Yeah.
Like I said to her earlier, I'm not comfortable. I don't really want to have this conversation, but it's a conversation we need to have. So we're going to do it.
Good.
So I'm going to turn the floor over to LB. And LB, I just want you to share a little bit about yourself, share a little bit about your loss and, you know, the stuff that you've gone through to get you to where you are now.
Absolutely. Well, estate planning. Let me just go ahead and put this disclaimer out there. I am no attorney.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I need y'all to go ahead and make sure you get somebody that knows exactly what they're talking about. This was a situation where my family was kind of thrown into, of course, who prepares for death.
Yeah.
Some people don't. But beside or outside of that, my name is Lakia Brandenburg. As Melissa said, I am LB, the wife coach. I created the only premium coaching program in wife development that's changing miserable married women into happy, fun, and irresistible wives. I've been married to my boo, my baby daddy, Derek, for 12 years, and he and I have created two beautiful daughters. I have a 12-year-old. Excuse me, she's gonna get me. She's turning 14. I'm so used to saying 12. She's turning 14 soon. I have a 14-year-old cool kid, and I have a 4-year-old souvenir from Jamaica. Her name is Lexi.
Yes.
So this is our family. And I'm originally from Maryland. A lot of people don't know that. From Maryland, from the DMV area, where I was born and raised. And my mom, of course, was from, and it's kind of hard when you're talking about, you know, your loved one, because you're talking in the present, then you're talking in the past. But she's from Maryland as well. And we finally had gotten her, Melissa, on Mother's Day to move down here in 2018. We had been trying to get her to move to Atlanta for so many years, but she was very comfortable. She was living her life at home. She had her church family. My mother's all about family, food, and faith. So, you know, she had those things. But when that souvenir from Jamaica came, when she found out that I was pregnant, that's when she was like, you know what? I don't want to miss her growing up. I have to move to Atlanta. I'm coming. I'm sold. So one of the best treats she gave myself and my family was moving to Atlanta for Mother's Day in 2018. And we were like just really enjoying life. Like we were together again, 3 peas in a pod, you know, like myself and my sister and my mom were back together. And of course, in 2020, when COVID hit, you know, this was all new to all of us, right? We had no idea the severity of COVID. Not that we were taking it lightly, but we just didn't know. No one knew. Back in, I think it was March of 2020 when everything shut down for the first time, right?
Yeah.
And this was during the time where, you know, we were kind of going out and getting like stocking up on groceries like a winter storm was coming, you know, just trying to listen to the news. They telling you
all the toilet paper.
I couldn't understand that part, Melissa.
Don't know either.
Still don't know.
I did it too.
Go to the bathroom? Like, are we going to be on the toilet? We were so confused. Yeah. But, you know, she was one of those that were, you know, going to the grocery store. We're pretty homebody lifestyle. So it's not like we were out a lot. And then she just started not feeling well. Like literally my mom, Ruth C. Arrington, she just started not feeling well, and we took her to the doctor. Um, and they basically were saying they don't see anything. They did X-ray, they didn't see anything, and then of course she came back home with some antibiotics, and she started feeling better. And then next thing you know, it was April 1st of 2020. Never forget that day because that was the day my life literally changed. She went into the hospital. She was in the hospital for 30 days, never came home. She passed on May 1st of 2020 after a battle with
Mm.
COVID. I mean, a battle. And it was
Wow.
a battle for us because it was just so hard, Melissa, to see her going through that.
Yeah.
I spoke with her, FaceTimed her for like the first 3 or 4 days, and then she was sedated and placed on a ventilator, and that was it. It was just very difficult. And at that time, we're not thinking, do we have plans, for mommy when she
Right.
passed? Like we're just put in this
Right.
situation. But the crazy thing about it though, Melissa, when my mom moved to Maryland, January of 2019, I called a family meeting. I'm like, all right, y'all, we're gonna have goals for this year. We're gonna do this thing. I'm always the one in the family. I'm the one
There's always
that's
one.
like,
There's
I'm,
always one.
I'm that one, Melissa. I'm like, okay, y'all, we're gonna do this. Okay, no, y'all playing too much. We're gonna do this. So we sat at the table and we talked about our goals, and I talked about life insurance because one thing that
Mm.
I knew as an entrepreneur, my husband also was an entrepreneur. I'm like, yo, we playing with this thing. We out here talking about hustling and getting all this money. But what we doing to set up to make sure our girls are good when we leave here? What are we
Exactly.
doing to make sure that life continues when we're gone? And so at that conversation when we had this family meeting, I encouraged my mom, I encouraged my sister, like y'all got to get life insurance. And my mother had life insurance at the time, but she said, well, I can get more. I guess I can get more. And I didn't know she actually went and did that. Like
Yeah.
she took care of her business. So when my mom passed, we realized, like, of course, grief has hit you. You're just trying to deal with this unsurmountable, like, how are you with somebody for 40? I was 40 at the time. 40 years of my life, Melissa, and I had a great relationship with my mom. What perfect? Come on now. I got on
Of
her
course.
nerves. She's
Of
on
course.
mine.
Of course.
I mean,
Of
we weren't
course.
perfect, but she was my mama. Like that was
Yeah.
my mother. The
Yes.
only parent that I really knew like that, grew up, been there. And so how do you now adjust to life without her? That was hard.
Yeah.
And you're spending so much time with grief, but then it's like now you got to make funeral plans. Now
Yeah.
you got to make all these, and it's like, yo, are we prepared? Because really losing her made me ask myself, are we prepared for
Yeah.
our children to take us to make sure they're good when we transition, hopefully if we transition first. So we had to get comfortable with that uncomfortable conversation
Yeah.
and started looking at, we had already had life insurance in place, but I wanted to really start spreading the word. And that same year, actually January of 2020, right when Kobe had passed, we were going to put together a Be a Living Legacy event where we were talking to our family and friends about the importance of getting life insurance. My mommy is going to be there, my sister, myself. We wanted to host this because we don't talk about this
No,
in our
we don't.
community. I
No,
didn't
we
grow
don't.
up talking about life insurance. We had
No.
fish fries. That was our GoFundMe. We had fish
Yes.
fries, or you like, hey, what you
Yes.
got on it? What you got on Bo Man's funeral? You know what I'm saying? Like that was how
Exactly.
we handled it. And so I didn't want to be that family, Melissa. I didn't. So we started having the conversation. We wanted to put together to Be a Living Legacy. And then, of course, my mom got sick. She passed. And it was like, we have to continue. We have to do it because now we're seeing the importance of having your house in order.
It's
Now we're seeing
it's
the importance.
funny. It's funny that you say that. Like, most people don't have stuff like this together, especially in our community.
Yeah.
It's the truth. And unfortunately, we've kind of been painted the picture that, oh, life insurance is too expensive. Oh, we
Hmm.
can't afford to do that. Oh, we're living paycheck to paycheck already. My thing is, if you can stand online and wait for them new Jordans to drop,
Listen,
or if
listen,
you can go buy the latest iPhone or whatever, you
listen.
can spend that money and get life insurance coverage. And it's not all as expensive as you think it is. And there's some companies where they don't even require you to do like a medical exam or
Correct.
whatever to be approved and stuff. It's just about doing research and figuring out what works for you. It's because, as you pointed out, it's a very difficult thing to be just thrusted into. So what would your advice be? Like, what would the first step
Yeah.
be for people who have no knowledge of insurance, no knowledge of prepping for stuff like
Yeah.
this? What would your advice be to them?
You know what? It's mindset, Melissa. Because if we can have, like you said, insurance on our car, we can have insurance on our phone, we can have insurance on the trip we about to go on. Why can't you put $20 aside each month? Because literally that's how much it is. Like it's so
Mhm.
inexpensive to get life insurance. So the first thing I would do is to make it a priority. Like
Yeah.
of why do my family? I'm talking about generational wealth. I'm talking about leaving a legacy. Let's talk about
Mhm.
what that's going to look like. Because
Yeah.
sometimes we're just lip service. We're just
Ooh,
saying we want to do those things, but to put
but we
that
don't
practice
do
into
it.
play, okay, let's really figure out what that's going to look like. How can life insurance help us? Because
Yeah.
life insurance just means we talking about death. Like that's one thing that's sure that's going to happen.
Yes.
You ain't going to be here forever.
That's
Like
true.
we gotta stop making it taboo. It's going to
Yeah.
happen. People think if you talk about it sooner, it's gonna happen sooner. Like, no, you can't.
Mhm.
Okay, come on, baby. So I had to change my mind about how I saw insurance and how it can help and propel my family. So that's the first thing. Really changing your mindset of how you see life insurance. Then start doing the research. I know that word sounds real boring. Start asking around. Same thing, aka research. Who's your life insurance through? Start with your car insurance folks. Maybe they offer life insurance to see if you can bundle it up. There's
Yeah,
so
that's
many
true.
different, you see what I'm saying? So many
Yeah,
different
that's true.
opportunities. And I learned this a lot through the Be a Living Legacy event that we did. It was a 3-part series. We brought in an estate planning attorney. We brought in a will attorney. We brought in well, we said estate. What was the other one? Hold on, I got to think of the other one. But we brought in 3 attorneys to talk, or a life insurance agency. I'm sorry, agent, to bring knowledge to our community, which is our family, our friends, of what it's going to take to put a life insurance policy into place. How it's really not going to take a lot of time, but there's a sense of peace. Melissa, let me tell you something. Out here hustling as an entrepreneur, there's a whole lot of it was a whole lot of not peaceful moments in that.
Yeah.
But to know that my family is covered in the event something happens to me prematurely, before my time, before I think I'm supposed to leave here, because you know the way I want to go. You seen the Notebook? Have you seen the Notebook?
Oh
I love
yes.
I love to land on the gurney. There
Oh
I
my
got holding
goodness.
hand. All right, baby. Now we
It's
can go.
it's
That's
funny
my
that you say
vision.
that. It's
I
funny that
don't know
you say
God's
that.
vision, but you know, I don't know God's vision is aligned to mine. Normally, that's not how it works. So I'm making sure I'm prepared. So I think those are the first steps. Really change your mindset about my, insurance, and
And
then
do the
start
research.
asking around about what you need to do to get it.
It's crazy because I can speak, for example, with my mother. I don't usually talk about it too much, but my mother was diagnosed with dementia uh,
Hmm.
probably like a year and a half, almost 2 years ago. And one of the biggest things is, planning for the future. Unfortunately, we know there's no cure,
Yeah.
and it is a disease that's going to just continuously, you know, break her break her down pretty much. Um, but we're Jamaican. And in our culture, talking about getting life insurance or talking about planning for death or whatever, it's almost like an omen. And I remember, and someone proposed, getting like burial insurance and stuff for her. And she was so mad. She
Hmm.
was like, "Oh, you're wishing death on me. How could you?" And you kind of just have to chalk it up to the culture.
Yeah.
So for those people who may have parents who are older
Yes.
or, significant others or whoever, who may be dealing with health issues or whatever, how can we start that conversation? How do we start it without being offensive, without, ruffling feathers?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Because honestly, our parents, we always look to them as they have all the answers. But I think what my mother saw over the years is that I'm learning a lot from my child. I'm learning a lot from my
Mm,
daughter. So she had to become more open minded to things as well.
yeah.
I think the conversation starts with even the language that you use. Because
Yes.
again, like she said, you're wishing death on me, because that's a connotation. Like,
Yeah.
talk about burial. I mean, I know you can't make, well, maybe when we put you in the grave. I mean, like, it's different things you can
Sorry.
say, but
Laugh.
it's really about how are we going to build wealth. See, when
Yeah.
we hear that, then it's like, oh, I'm listening. But you don't realize you're also building wealth through a life insurance policy,
Yes. Yes.
because there's so many families that get packed. There's millions. that get passed down from generation to generation because they've been set up for that. So
Yes.
just know that our time is going to come to an end. I'm not praying that it's anytime soon, but when that comes, I want to just be able to grieve. That's enough. I don't
Yes.
want to think about, okay, do we have enough money in place? Can we afford to bury them? Because it's very expensive. It's very expensive. And really asking them what are their last wishes.
Mm.
Like, it's not
What
just
do they
about me
want to
trying to
do? Yeah.
capitalize on your life.
Yep.
Like, well, okay, when you go, we want to make sure we get a couple million.
Yep.
No, what are your last wishes? Because I told my family, look, I want y'all to take that money and go celebrate life. Celebrate my life. Don't spend a whole lot of money on no burial.
Yeah.
Nah. Use that money to continue the legacy. My goal is
Yes.
to make sure you can continue to live without me.
Oh
That's
my
it.
gosh. I wish more people would look at it from that perspective. I mean, I've had this conversation like with my father-in-law, and he was
Yeah.
like, "Barry, please
Mm-hmm.
just burn my body and put me in a like urn or whatever. Don't be spending no
Yes.
money on that." Like
Yes.
there are certain people who just they get it. They understand what's
Yeah.
important. And there are other people who are like, "You know what? You know, if I can't benefit from it when I'm alive, then none of y'all can benefit from it." It's so
Right.
tricky. And
Yeah.
and when we talk about estate planning, we have to look beyond just getting life insurance or burial insurance.
Correct.
We got to think about, okay, if my parents have assets, like if they have a house, what do they want to do with the house? Is it going to be in a trust? Can it be sold?
That's it.
Does it go to a family member? What do we do with the clothes that is going to be left behind? There's so much to think about outside of just planning a funeral or a repast or whatever.
That's
And
it.
I remember when my grandparents passed a few years ago, one of the biggest things that I noticed with some family members is like, well, she ain't called me and told me that he passed away, so I ain't gonna say nothing to her. What? People are
Mm-hmm.
busy trying to figure out these kind of stuff, and your concern is that, oh, she ain't call me, so I ain't gonna say nothing to her. No, 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 no. She's
Yeah.
trying to figure out what's gonna happen to the house, what's gonna
Mm-hmm.
happen to whatever bills
Yeah.
they got, what's gonna happen to the clothes, whatever other accounts they got, all this other stuff. Oh, I'm gonna have to transfer this and put it in my name. What
Yes.
what and maybe we probably gonna have to do a part two and get a lawyer to come in and do something,
Yeah.
give us like a breakdown,
Yeah.
because unfortunately not everyone was as, and I don't want to say responsible, because I don't want it to seem like I'm saying people are irresponsible, but what are some of the things that could be done? Like Miss Ruthie was super responsible. She got her
Yeah.
stuff, she wanted to make sure y'all were good. But not
Right.
everybody has that setup.
Yeah.
So what are some other things outside of um, getting that insurance that can be done to make sure that this transition is not as difficult on the family as it is for most people?
I think, like you were saying with the will, because like
I'm
imagine
sorry.
if my mom was still in Maryland
Mm,
with the house, with all her stuff.
yeah.
Like that would be a totally different, this would be a totally different conversation.
Yes.
But because she had already moved, she sold her house, she did everything and came down here. Like we're still trying to figure out what to do with her things almost 2 years
Mm,
later. It'll be 2 years in May. Like it doesn't even feel like I'm saying that. Because I think about my
wow.
mother like she's here every day. I go in her
Yeah.
room and I smell her clothes and all of that stuff we didn't talk about. We just talked about life insurance. But like you said, what about the will? Bringing them
Yeah.
into having your last wishes. Like, I
Yeah.
think we have to have that conversation and just stop living like we're not going to be leaving here one day. I
Hmm.
think that the peace comes and people are afraid to have a conversation. But when I tell you I signed my name on that dotted line and Derek signed his name, there was such a peace that surpasses all understanding. Like
Yeah.
I felt so grown. I felt like a grown up. And it's not that you're being irresponsible. It's the ignorance that will keep you
Yes.
in the
Yes.
irresponsibility of taking care of your family. That's part of taking care of your family. That's part of having a relationship and a marriage
Hmm.
that is just more than you and your spouse. This is taking care of who we brought into this world, making sure they don't have to stress over. And see, that's how my mindset now. It's taken me years to get here because I also thought I couldn't afford insurance too. I'm like,
Hmm.
no, I can't afford not to afford
Yeah.
life insurance.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
No, you're
So
right. Absolutely.
yeah, so I think maybe even the will, just what do you want to do with your things when you pass? Some people
Yeah.
have an idea, some people don't, but these are conversations. We have family meetings now. setting
That's
goals.
important. That's
This is what I'm
important.
saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. Instead of
Super
just meeting
important.
at the funeral.
But we've seen it. Like last year when DMX passed away, his
Yeah.
fiance, she went through it. She was trying to get access to finances, and the judge was like, "Nah, like you're
Yeah.
not married to him."
They weren't married.
You
Yeah.
know, so it's stuff like this. If there was a will in place, I'm not sure if there was, but if there was a will in place and that said, all right, she's going to be responsible for this, this, and this, then that would be different. People think that
Yeah.
a will has to be super complex. It's
It doesn't.
literally just saying, I'm giving my stuff to this person or this
Correct.
person, and if this person is not available, then you know what I'm saying? It's not as
Exactly.
tedious, and I think that's a very good first step.
Hmm.
Even if you want to take that route and research like life insurance policies in the meantime, like,
Yeah.
whatever. But a will, and I tell people all the time, and a lot of older folks, they brush it off like, oh, I got time. Even us millennials at some point, it's like,
Yes.
because you see some of these rappers, unfortunately, are passing away, and their parents don't even have access to burying them. They don't have access to funds or anything. And I'm like, all right, we got to do
It's such
better.
a headache.
We
Yeah.
got
It's a
to do
headache.
better. I
Hmm.
noticed something when I was doing a little research for this podcast episode. One thing I realized, I didn't find, I found only two people of color who were discussing estate planning. Two people
Yeah.
of color. And I think the misconception is people think that that's for white folks. And that's not the case. That's not true. It is
Or you
for
have to be
all of
wealthy.
us. It's putting us more, it's setting us more back when
Yes.
we don't plan for these things. Because what
Correct.
happens is somebody passes unexpectedly. You got to borrow money from here, from there, from everywhere. Then you paying these people back, and you paying back with all this
Yes.
interest and whatever. And you now put yourself in a hole because y'all wasn't prepared. So
Listen, it,
yeah,
another thing too, Melissa, now that you're talking about that, the pre the preparation helps you for when the person you lose, whoever the loved one is, right? And it's time to plan their funeral. So much emotion is there that
yeah,
you'll probably start getting stuff that you wouldn't have never got if
exactly.
so. Like we had, because one, it was a COVID funeral for my mom. We sent her back home, because of course she's from Maryland. And I'm be honest with you, the service that she had, we had it because I had a conversation with her in January of 2020. It was as right after Kobe had passed, we talked about like, wow, just the grief of that. And then what kind
Yeah,
of service would you want? Like just having an impromptu conversation, not
yeah,
knowing this is going to come to life 6 months later. You see what I'm
yeah,
saying? But
yeah.
when you're sitting there and you're planning, and y'all gotta understand, funeral homes, that's a business.
Oh
Like it's
yes,
business.
they want their
You want
check.
you want doves? You love her. What kind of person was she? Talk about that before. See, this
Yes,
is already, no, we don't need the horn. We don't need the man with the horse and carriage. Like start having that conversation now so that
yeah,
you'll know what that needs to look like for your family and then
right.
go forward, on how you're going to rebuild your life now because things have been put into place. Grief is enough. Grief is
Yes,
heavy enough, y'all. Like I promise you, grief does not get smaller. You have to get bigger. But when you have all of that, now, okay, what are we gonna do with our things? Or, oh God, the house, are we gonna keep our house? Or, those things just add stress to your marriage, to your family, when it
yes,
could have been taken care of before. So things are
exactly.
gonna transition one day, but I think the preparation is where we're missing what we can do now.
In addition to all of that, I also think therapy is a good tool. Like, I recommend therapy for everything, like
Yes.
everything. And it sounds strange, but there's some people who actually go to therapy to deal with this before it actually happens.
Yeah.
Which I think is not a bad idea at all, because you want to be prepared. And of course, you'll never ever be fully, totally prepared for when
For
that
sure.
moment comes, but
Mhm.
at least you'll have an idea. Okay, this is what needs to be done. This is what needs to be done. Because, like you said, a lot of the times your emotions get caught up in it, and you tend to do things you would not normally do without the emotion. So get therapy before, after.
Yes.
I have a family member right now that's in grief therapy. She my uncle passed away last year. Horrible uh trailer accident. I don't know what they be doing in Florida. And he unfortunately passed away. And, it's something that I've encouraged because I see how much it can help. You already
Mhm.
have so much on your plate having to figure out, all right, he was working here. I got to tell his boss. I got to do this. It's so much that needs to be done.
Yes.
So, LB, before we wrap up and get out of here, because again, I'm trying to keep it short and sweet. We talked about life insurance. We talked about what we're going to do with a house, the clothes, all
Yes.
that stuff. We talk about the mindset, the research. We talked about the will, all that stuff. What is one final thing that you could leave with the millennial audience? People who are like, I got time. I'm young. Oh, that ain't gonna happen no time soon.
Yeah.
What advice would you leave with them to say, yo, what you gonna do about this life
Yeah.
insurance? What you gonna do about this?
I mean, honestly, like they always tell us, you can't take it with you, right?
I can't.
Everything that you are working so hard for, the whole goal is to create a legacy. And
Yeah,
legacy starts with you and what you're
yeah,
leaving behind.
yeah,
So as you are preparing, out here, get these businesses, you're out here making this money, out here, traveling, whatever it is, make sure that there's a plan in place for how this will transition, or, you'll be able to pass the baton to keep your family's name rich, to
yes,
keep it, you know what I'm saying, strong, to where you don't have to have this start over generation.
yes,
Like
yes.
I came from a start over generation, and I'd be damn if my children gonna have to start over.
Oh, yes,
So I'm not working this hard just for LB. I'm working for Lexi. I'm working for Demi, but I'm also working for their kids and their
yes.
kids' kids. So I think that's the mindset millennials have to start adopting, that it's not just about me, it's about this generation that I'm a part of and the legacy that I'm leaving behind.
I'm so glad you said that. I want us to stop looking at things from a selfish perspective, from that
Yes.
mindset like, oh, it ain't gonna affect me, so I don't care. Just like how people look at like global warming and all that stuff. Like, I ain't gonna be here 100 years from now. I don't care. No, we got to be better and we got to be more
Yes.
responsible. And we have to set an example for our kids and teach them that when they too become of age, that these are the things they need to be prepping for,
Correct.
because the only thing that's promised in life is death. So we got to do what we have to do, pull out all the stops. And as I'm talking, I just feel all these goosebumps coming up all over me because it's so uncomfortable. It's
Yeah.
such an uncomfortable thing to talk about. I mean, I've tried, and my husband and I, we've talked about this, and his mindset is kind of like, well, you're going to go before me, so whatever. And I'm like, well, no,
So
babe. Like,
research shows that
he's
the
just
men,
like, he's got like, you deal with that. Like, that's on you. And I'm like, no, 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 no. We got to talk about this because
yeah.
anything can happen. And he's like, oh, you're such a negative Nancy. Like, no, 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 no. We got to be prepared.
No.
We got to think about what's going to happen to the kids, what's going to happen to you. He was like, well, whatever money you get from my life insurance, just make sure you marry a good man that's going to take care of our kids and, get a nice house or, something. I'm like,
Right.
you want me
That
to take your life insurance money to go have another man living up in the house I spent?
basically, you gonna roll
Man,
over
he
in
just
your
don't want to deal with it. And I get it. I get
yeah,
it. I totally get it. It's uncomfortable, but we got to
it
have that
is.
conversation.
You do.
We got to set that pace from now. So when our kids become of age, they are not impacted by it the way we are impacted by it. When
Correct.
they talk about it, it should be like, oh yeah, yeah, I did my will the other day. Oh yeah, yeah, I'm doing my. It should
Exactly.
be like super nonchalant and chill, you know.
That's it. That's
So
that's the attitude, Melissa. That's
yes,
exactly, because the goal is
yes,
for it to be an everyday conversation. And
yeah,
the more you have uncomfortable conversations, the more comfortable they become.
that's true. Absolutely right. Yay. We had to talk about death and all that stuff, and I didn't break down. This is really tough. But LB, I thank you so much for coming through. Before we close this out, please let everybody know where they can find you. I'm sure they already are following you and everything already, but
You
still,
know,
let them
yeah,
know, tell them what you got going on, all that good stuff.
yeah. Well, no, I'm sure they're gonna be connected now because of the Own Your Ship podcast.
Yeah.
But
Yes,
no,
come on now.
please come connect with me on Instagram at the Wife Coach, where I talk about everything wife, not about this stuff. But listen, this is part of creating
It's
the type
part
of
of it.
marriage you want.
Yes,
But
part
I'm
of
so
it.
grateful, Melissa, for us having this conversation, because again, we always want to talk about the good stuff, the romance, the sex, and nah, let's talk about real life too. And this
Yes.
is part of it. So come hang with me over at The Wife Coach on Instagram. Connect with me. In fact, I want you to make sure you know if you are showing up in your relationship as a married woman or a wife. Go to my website, thewifecoach.com. And then I want you to download this free ebook that's showing you if you're showing up as these 7 signs that you're showing up as a married woman and not a wife. So make sure you download that, grab it, and let me know.
Look, y'all better go get this because she been snatching my edges for almost 2 years. So see, I ain't got no edges.
You are hilarious. Yes, you do.
No, she been snatching my edges for a long time. Like y'all need to understand, like not because you was a bride means you a
Listen,
wife. She will
tell
tell
her,
you,
listen.
okay?
We be
But
snatching
thank
both.
you so much for coming through and just chopping it up with me. And I really hope that this blesses a lot of people.
Yeah.
And guys, once again, we want to continue this conversation. So head over to my Instagram page or just drop down in the comments below. Let's continue this conversation. What are some other things we could do to prepare ourselves for, that time, again, you guys can follow me on Instagram at Melissa T Walker _ and use the hashtag OYS podcast so we can continue having conversations like this. Thank you guys for joining, and we will talk soon. Take care. Well, that's all, y'all. Thanks for tuning in this week. If you haven't already, please subscribe and leave a review for the show. It helps a whole lot. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Melissa T Walker _ and use the hashtag OYS podcast for more great content.